So it is 5 o'clock. It's the meeting of the Mitchell Field Committee. All the Mitchell Field Committee members are present. And I'll introduce Spike Heibel, who's going to make the Mitchell Field Group presentation introductions, and we'll go from there. Spike?
I'm going to move this, Mitchell. I'm not going to touch any buttons. Okay. Good evening, I'm Spike Heibel, and as John calls it the Mitchell Field Group. We call ourselves the Mitchell Field Trust, just for a little more formality. We haven't actually incorporated as a nonprofit at this point, but we call ourselves the Mitchell Field Trust. Myself, Dave Zamborowski, Reed Coles, who couldn't be here tonight, and Helen Norton have spent the past 9 months really working on thoughts about what the future of Mitchell Field is going to be, and we got started because we were all mutually and sort of separately frustrated with what was happening with Mitchell Field in terms of planning and the processes that were taking so long to get things done. And in particular, the status of the administration building really got us pretty fired up, because it seemed like the Mitchell Field Committee, of which I was a member and chairman for a number of years, and then I got off this past year because I wanted to do what I'm doing now. And I was also a Mitchell Field Committee member back in the early days of Mitchell Field. But we felt that the administration building was a key component of what would happen with the field in general, and particularly the waterfront, because as we all know, we've been working on the boat launch plans for years. I think we're at year 11 right now, and now it's finally started. So that's what brought us together, and we found common ground about a number of things. But in particular, we just wanted to be a voice for Mitchell Field and how it develops in the future. And by development, we mean that our vision for Mitchell Field is that it should be more of a park and less of a business park, if you will. It should be more of a park and less of a for passive recreation than it should be for developing all kinds of different uses. And I think we all are familiar with the various things that were proposed for Mitchell Field over the years. There's been solar farms, there's been affordable housing, there's been this massive land-based salmon farm. The desire to have a library, to have a cafe, to have all these different things go on at Mitchell Field. Some of which was part of the original master plan, but the master plan has changed over time and is going to change again. And our goal is to be part of that process and bring our own vision to it and see if we can help lead the town towards something that basically is more like a preservation of this property in its beautiful open state than it is about creating more infrastructure than just the boat launch, which is going to be the big project. What have we done so far? We've met, we created a mission statement for ourselves. We met in the very beginning with the Friends of Fort Williams Park. And Fort Williams Park, many are familiar with it, but it's also Portland Headlight is part of that. And the Friends of Fort Williams Park collaborate, they work with the town of Cape Elizabeth to manage and plan the park and do infrastructure projects such as trails and whatever else that they might need, including maintenance. And they raise money for it, and so they're an active partner with the town, not always agreeing on things, but they're an important part of managing Friends of Fort Williams, the Fort Williams Park. So we spent quite a bit of time with them learning how they do what they do and how it works, how it's beneficial, what the snags are, and working with the town. but in general, that was very helpful for us and helped to guide what we're thinking about. The second thing we did was interviewed 5 different landscape architects, so quite well known and who are based in Maine, and we ended up hiring Mitchell Razor and his group for what we're after. We think they're a really good fit for the theme that we're after. That's the biggest component. We also actively advocated on behalf of taking the admin building down, as many people know. That was a major debate, which has been answered by the voters, and that's going to come down in December. Which, for us, the primary thing about the administration building was that the administration building is an impediment to better green space at the waterfront. And by taking it down and opening up that space, you can reimagine not only how the waterfront is used in a green way, but also parking, traffic flow, and how everything works with the boat launch, and being able to integrate all that in a better way. The building just became the plug in the works. So that's who we are, where we're coming from, what we hope to do. We hope to participate with the town if that is reasonable, both in a planning and possibly a financial way, about what happens to Mitchell Field. And thinking, and our thinking process is 10 years, 20 years. There's a lot that needs to be done there to improve the property. The woods are in bad condition, for instance. So we're thinking long term. We want to be around for the long term. So I'm going to introduce Mitchell Razor. We worked with him to create an initial concept for what we have envisioned, and he has put together his own thoughts about how it should go and how it should progress, and we've got drawings and we've got pretty pictures. So Mitchell is a graduate of Oberlin College, where he just was giving talks. He lectures around the country on landscape stuff. And he graduated from Harvard School of Design in Masters in Landscape Architecture. And I guess I just want to read one little thing that I took from somebody that wrote about you. If I can find it here. He has 25 years of experience as a landscape architect, working on a wide variety of projects in the areas of landscape architecture, urban design, civic spaces, environmental art, green infrastructure, climate resiliency, of which he recently brought some students to Mitchell Field to talk about that. Complete streets, downtown and waterfront revitalization, and community relations. He focuses, these are my words, interpreting everything. He focuses on working with nonprofits, land trusts, and municipalities. That's his, and he can correct me some on that if he wants, but he uses an open and a collaborative approach to design. He worked with the town of Harpswell on their open space plan in 2009, and his approach is collaborative and inclusive, and he believes that successful design relies on stakeholder and community input. So that's the kind of person we're working with. So, Mitchell Razor.
Thanks, Mike. So it's a pleasure to be here, thanks. And I know the committee members are here and probably some other folks. We appreciate the fact that there's a lot of different interests here, and I'm happy to be taking part in this sort of, I guess, a little bit of a fluid process in terms of talking about Mitchell Field and the future of it. As Mike said, I was involved with the open space plan back in 2009 or so with FB Environmental, and the last couple of years I've been working with UVA students as part of the Envision Resilience Project. So we worked in some Portland sites last year, and this year the UVA team is looking at Harpswell. You've probably seen them around a bit, and they were up here already for one site visit, the students. So I think I think what's going to happen out of that process is you're going to get some great concept designs and master planning ideas for free from these students. You're going to really love their work. They do excellent work. I think there's also some students from Maine College of Art, where I happen to also be a professor at the Maine College of Art, but I'm not involved with those students, and they'll be presenting some work. So as I said, we're happy to be be a part of this discussion. This is not, I consider where we are right now is still a discussion. There's no finalized designs or ideas, and when Spike reached out to me, we sort of he asked us to develop some ideas for the site. They didn't come to us like on program lists, like we want this, we want this, we want this, do this. It was really more like, what do you see there? What are some thoughts about how things might proceed? I mean, the only thing that was sort of on the table at that time was the conversations around the admin building. Does it stay or does it go? And, obviously they were advocating for it to be removed, and I think that's going to be starting next month. So a little bit of context, and this is, I think, I'm hopefully just reiterating all the information you know about. There's already been previous master planning efforts here going way back. There's historic emergent landscape ecologies on the site, which are really unique to that site and something to sort of use as, I think, a baseline understanding, and I'll talk about that in a second. There's the Mitchell Field Committee, there's ongoing community and stakeholder stewards, and all sorts of folks who are really interested in it. The zone change that happened down there a while back for the business district comprehensive plan. Please vote tomorrow, we'll see how that goes, right? Community votes about the site, vision resilience again, I'm involved with boat ramp has started, and I work with GEI and other projects, so it's exciting to see that moving forward. Also, GEI is working, I think, through a COG grant to do some nature-based design strategies for the site right now. That's underway. And I've been helping coordinate GEI with UVA students as well to see if they can cross-inform each other. And bid building's about to come up. And I think there's just always ongoing land use and other types of issues that are, to be considered as you're moving through a planning process. This is a quick overview in terms of some of the things we were thinking about. Just as sort of, I guess you can call it like a site analysis before we get into any of our concepts, is that, when we arrived and looked at the site, sort of with a fresh, hopefully maybe with a little bit of fresh eyes, the two big things that we saw, the big thing we saw was sort of like the binary of the site. It's like field and forest, and you have sort of these two major experiences. So, and I'm obviously just preaching to the choir here, because you're all more familiar with the site than I am. But really, that there are these two big sort of moves, and I think they have their own ecology that's inherently healthy and interesting. But it's sort of two. You have this big open field, and you have the forest. The forest isn't as diverse as it could be, and then the field we thought sort of potentially could, while maintaining the views, respecting sort of the topography that was introduced as part of the previous tank farms. Is there things you can do to maintain the views, but maybe make the field more biodiverse while making the forest more biodiverse? Making the experience of hiking or skiing or running in the woods more interesting, while making the field more interesting for humans to use for biking or skiing or walking or snowshoeing or whatever they might be doing in the field all seasons. So that was something that first sort of struck me, was that it's sort of the binary relationship between it. Is there a way to maybe start to break that down a little bit and create diversity of ecosystems as well as diversity of experiences across the site? We know it's windy out there and exposed. Are there ways to make it more habitable for birds as well as people using the site? We also noticed that there's some existing wetlands and drainage ways on the site. It may just look like a meadow, but it's like a wetland meadow. There's streams and wetlands within the forest, and what could be done to augment those and create more edge conditions and more sort of diverse conditions across the site. Right now there's sort of like one monolithic edge condition, and we were wondering, could we create more edge conditions that would then create more ways to interface with that site? What's happening right now underway, and the bids are in, and construction's already started. Excitement around the boat ramp. And we know this will probably be used a lot more than say, or it'll be easier to use potentially than say Mirror Point. I was also involved with the design of planning Mirror Point years ago. That was sort of our basic analysis of the site, and then of course you have sort of the most program activities already happening around the waterfront, which isn't unusual on a lot of sites in Maine. That's like that sort of precious resource, that little bit of shoreland access, and you have the clustered uses already down there on the beach. So that there's like that's sort of like a pressure point where careful planning needs to happen. What are maybe some strategic moves that can happen down there in terms of making that more amplifying what's there, allowing the uses to happen, but maybe even improving the experience down there. So here's sort of like an overview of sort of the general concept that we came up with, and I'll zoom into some of these areas to make it a little bit more legible. But basically, as I said, the idea was to try to sort of cross-inform the field and the forest, maybe bring a little bit of the forest to the field, a little bit of the field to the forest, create a little bit more of a dynamic situation while maintaining those inherent qualities of field and forest, but making it a little bit more, I think, user-friendly for folks, and then also hopefully creating a little bit more sort of micro dynamics in terms of the ecology of the site, across the site. So I think you'll sort of see that there's a little bit of woods brought into the field, like that sort of that agricultural hedgerow idea, and then a little bit more clearings brought to the forest, as well as like other things like that you'd have to get into, like forest management and diversity of trees and species in there to sort of help improve that ecosystem in general. And then we looked at a couple ideas working with the boat ramp, what might happen down along the waterfront. So for the open field, the upper part, this is zooming in there, you already have the existing gardens there, and you have this entrance road that's quite nice, and you have this sort of an olive color, that like wetland meadow that sort of defines that edge. And then you have sort of like a ridge line along here. And this is a great walk, that that existing loop road that's been closed off for traffic, but people love to walk it. And the idea along there is that to create more of a rhythm of views and hedgerows along here. And you see, I think you can get that, people pick up on that there, you can see that there. You see that, see those woods there on there, does that make sense? So if you can imagine sort of walking along here, having your views, having some protected areas, or if you walk along a new trail on that ridge line up to the central view out, you have a sort of a rhythm of looking at the hedgerows and the views and sort of breaking up that experience. Let's make it in order, sorry. Here's the forest area, and again, trying to create some more openings within the forest, allowing some more edge conditions to happen, and allowing a little bit more diversity to occur. And I'll go back to, and here's the area down along the waterfront. And we basically just sketched in the trailer parking here and the boat ramp parking there. Any questions at this point about any of these general strategies?
These are all low-growing shrubs and things you're putting in, not tall trees.
For the hedgerows?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, they could be, we haven't even gotten that far yet. I mean, a typical hedgerow to help break the wind might be a bit taller. You might have trees mixed with, you might have try to create a forest canopy experience. We have, taller trees, and then undergrow shrubs, so you have a mix of things. Yeah, to help break up that wind. But, we haven't specified any plant material yet. But really the idea is that, maintaining these key views down to the water, not blocking those views, while introducing some wind breaks and something for scale for humans to use. As a strategy, that just is a strategy. And any questions about this sort of area, the approach in this area?
I guess that I'm curious about the proposed openings that are appear to open corridors towards the water. Is that Am I reading that sort of like lighter green, right? In the
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you asked that. Right. So this one here is like an existing opening, and then we thought it might be nice to have, potentially create some new openings and edge conditions, some that have views of the water, some that are along, that cut through the site, and maybe expose some light along the water, along the stream. So a combination of those types of openings, that's correct.
Can you just point out where the bandstand is for orientation? Is that it up?
That's it right here.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I appreciate that. And that's the new proposed trailer parking.
Yeah.
So that, the general strategy there is to really, like I said, to try to create a bit more diverse experience for people, and then add some ecological diversity and edge conditions for critters. And then down at the waterfront, we envision that the administration building could be gone, opening up those views. And then the big proposed change was to get rid of that redundant road there and create a park between the parking lot and the beach, and consolidate circulation. So you have a nice pedestrian zone for the park, you have parking and driving, and then the beach.
And the pad left from the admin building is
Can you
where?
speak up, please, because we're on TV and,
I'm not sure where the pad is yet, because we think that's going to remain, or we're not sure of the future of it yet,
are we
right?
talking about foundation?
Yeah,
For the moment, foundation remains.
Right.
I can show you that in a second.
You want to know where it is on that?
On that, yeah.
It'll be right about in this area right here.
It's going to be right here, right off the edge of the turn here.
That's where the concrete pad is.
Right.
Which, if you go to, here's that shape right there is the pad. If I go forward, that's right in this area right here.
So right in the middle of the beach lawn. Just checking.
We don't know if it's being removed yet or not, do we?
It's not, my understanding is it's
Say
not.
what?
Not at the current time, no. There was not money to do that.
Right. So it's approximating this location right here. And it can be used, it can be repurposed as like a market area or picnic tables. I mean, I'm not sure, what would you like to see on the pad?
It's marked there as beach lawn, so I just was trying to figure out how that
Oh, yeah.
fit, so.
But if it has to stay for a while and can't be removed, are there other things you'd like to see it used for?
I think having picnic tables and shaded areas would be lovely.
Yeah. I think something like that would be good too, because, I know like when we did Bug Light, we couldn't get rid of some of the concrete structures. They are incorporated into the park as seating areas or parking areas or like plaza areas, just, so, most of it was removed, but we had to, maintain some of those like historic relic structures.
Simple question.
Yeah, sure.
Are the green dots deciduous or conifer trees? Are they blocking the view or are they, just ask, what is the green dots are trees, I presume?
Yeah, they're trees. No species been decided. We were just conceptually talking about having some trees maybe to frame the view or create some shade areas. There's definitely some existing trees in this area that are quite lovely. That'd be nice to save. I would imagine trying to save those trees the best you can. The existing maples, that row of maples.
The other thing about the trees down there is that it's a way to create some separation from the business district.
These trees are, yeah, the trees are.
It allows you to separate
Right.
out what's commercial down there and what isn't.
I think conceptually, I think that was maybe part of the idea, is that there might be some trees here that could sort of buffer that end, and then don't have trees in the middle area, so you can maintain those views, the key views out over the water.
How will the traffic flow go for the oyster farm?
The oyster farm, well, they would just continue to come down the main road and drive it right over to where they are, just as they do today. I think there's, you know, the idea here is that to try to minimize the amount of sort of development in that area while maintaining sort of the general function for access to either the boat ramp or the oyster farm. There's pretty low volumes of traffic here. We did have I had a buddy who I work with a lot on traffic planning projects for downtowns and waterfronts. I had him take a look at this conceptually, and he thought that, you know, functionally it was, you know, it wasn't too big of an issue to remove that sort of redundant waterfront road. There's probably less than, I'm not sure, I mean, you're more familiar with the site than I am, but there's probably less than 200 or 300 trips down there a day, I'm guessing. What do you think? What do people think is a typical sort of volume of trips?
Busy in the summertime, we have 65 parking spots down there, and they're full.
Yeah, so that's
People
probably
cycling through during the day.
300, 400 trips a day, maybe?
And, you know, now everybody's gonna be on the same road, that plus the trailers.
Yeah, so if we're thinking at that lower volume of 300-400 trips a day, that's really low volumes, and that you could, you know, something like this would work functionally and safety-wise. If you had higher volumes, like, you know, like 1,000 trips a day or something, you know, you might get a little nervous about that, but I think at these low, quiet, slow volumes, and not a lot of users, and the boat ramp probably be more, well, what's the capacity of that? Is that about 30 to 60 boats a day? Depends on how much turnover there is in the lot, correct?
Well, what is the blue or green dotted line?
Well, I think that's the approximate zone line for the district.
But hadn't that changed?
Yeah, I think we're reflecting the current zone line. I believe we.
For zoning?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we showed that.
Yeah.
If that's incorrect, we can add on that. But I think we were given information on the current zone line, I believe. Yeah, that probably doesn't need to be on this rendering.
Excuse me, I might be out of touch and
No.
not come in soon enough. The access road for the construction of the pier or the boat ramp is to be removed in the end?
Oh, that's there now. I mean, conceptually, we said, so that's a good question. We said conceptually, if that also seems to be proven to be redundant, you know, why maintain that, even that construction drive, that could go away too. Yeah, because and talking to GEI, you know, they said that there's no plans to really improve that, just to leave it as is. So, you know, no money's being invested in this phase of work with the boat launch. It's just gonna really remain as a construction road, a gravel street.
No, it's not there now.
Yeah, so I think what I try to do, a lot of my plans is like, especially in a tight area like that, is if you have the potential to remove some redundant things that are maybe not contributing to the quality of the experience down there, like extra roads, you know, do you need them? Like, they're just impervious surface, they're not really habitable, they could potentially become green space.
But I mean, isn't all the land contaminated?
Pardon?
Isn't all the land contaminated? So you just don't get rid of things easily. I mean, I could have that completely wrong, but isn't most of the land under a VRAP?
You're saying you can't put a lawn on it?
No, you can do anything,
Oh.
but it costs to get rid of those things. And usually you build berms and hide it and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm just asking, I don't
In a
know.
lot of cases, you can cover it over.
Exactly.
Right.
But I mean, it just doesn't come cheap.
Yeah, to remove asphalt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, that would definitely be, I think that would be the big bold move here, is to create more park space and less road space. That's the big bold move here. Yeah, we do that quite a bit. You know, we have a project that's starting in Thomaston on the prison site, another waterfront park, and we're doing like a de-paving scheme. We're actually keeping the pavement, but we're cutting a lot of holes in it to create areas for planting and landscaping. So you maintain some of the pavement for walking or circulation, but then you can, you know, sort of soften that impact of it and increase sort of the diversity by de-paving certain areas with like saw cuts and creating circles and things like that. And you have other opportunities to do that on the site, different places potentially, you know, do some de-paving work. And this one we were proposing more or less to, you know, the concept would be to really create a, a really safe zone for pedestrians in this area, really create a clear circulation system, clear parking area, and then create that zone between the parking, because you've gone through this huge effort to remove the building, and sort of the next logical step is, well, if you're removing the building, creating that view, you can create a really nice zone there that's, for pedestrians to use and have an enlarged park. And I think I calculate it's about a half acre of asphalt you could remove in this concept. And then have approximately about 50 to 60 spaces quite easily without really increasing impervious over what's there now.
Can I kick in for a second, Mitchell?
Yeah, of course.
I think one of the things that we acknowledge is that making the flow to the boat launch and making it compatible with parking and minimizing any extra road surface in order to do that. So we, just generally looked at dimensions and how much space you need and for parking versus vehicles going through with boat trailers. So that's all detailed stuff that needs to be worked through, but the general concept we're trying to present is that by taking the building down and reworking the entrance road into the back of where the building is now, and that's all parking, you gain a significant amount of green space out in front, which can be reworked into whatever types of spaces are appropriate for being at the water, access to the beach. So there are details that need work, but the general picture is what we're trying to present, which is that this is a shift away from the main road going down and basically owning the waterfront, and moving that traffic up behind and making the space at the waterfront more user-friendly for passive uses. And so that's, we recognize that there will be details about parking and where specific trees go and all that stuff, but this is trying to give you the general view that the boat launch is the major waterfront feature, but we can create space away from it that separates people from the boat launch and also from the shellfish organization, so that there's a better feeling of going to a waterfront park, lack of a better term.
Yeah, thanks. Hi.
Hi. First, thank you so much for presenting. I think we're all obviously very excited to see this and have been hearing about it, so this is great. I apologize for my ignorance at looking at, I'm curious what the dark gray line, like what kind of surface those would be. I imagine they're additional walking paths.
Oh yeah, they would probably, well, thank you for that. Sorry. So this here, I think that's just, right now, I think it's a very informal path system. You just walk across the lawn.
Yeah.
And then there's nothing that even goes down to the beach system. I mean, in my mind's eye, that's sort of what I envision. It would just sort of stay that way as very informal.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any need to actually create a defined trails like that are paved or anything like that. That might have just been suggesting like general circulation for pedestrians, but I agree with you. I think I agree with that. You just to keep it almost as it is now with a lawn, and you just sort of walk down there and it's informal. And there's a couple spots, But that said, though, you are crossing through a drain system right now. If it gets much more popular, you may want to better define that entrance so you don't have people trapezing all through that system and really creating more potential erosion. Maybe creating a defined entrance spot, and that's a design to come up. But I do think that is something definitely to consider, that you sort of funnel people to key spots to cut through that system. I mean, right now there's some roads down there and things like that, so it'd be a little uncomfortable to cut through anywhere. But I think you may need to, eventually find a way to clarify that for people so so you avoid any sort of management issues with hurting that ecosystem.
And I appreciate that you are also in the concept phase, you know, you
Yeah.
picked out trees, like this is just a general
Yeah.
vision. I am entering this from the perspective of having little ones in the community, and I think we all can agree that there is nowhere really in town to learn to ride your bike safely from cars, except for really Mitchell Field. And I'm curious because as of now, you can go around that sort of big loop and avoid parking areas and big traffic. And I imagine that we're going to see more traffic down there with the boat launch. I mean, theoretically, right?
Oh, yeah, you'll probably see 30 to 50 more cars a day.
Right.
A day, not an hour, not an hour,
You
a
know,
day.
especially in the summer.
Yeah.
And so I was just curious where people can ride bikes.
Well, that, I mean,
Yeah,
I think Mitchell Fields, like, what's amazing about it is you have that incredible loop system, right? That is only a pedestrian zone, right?
We call them perimeter road.
With all this incredible perimeter roads, right? It's
Yes.
just amazing. I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's well over a mile of.
1.62.
Yeah, it's quite nice. I mean, it's really nice. And right now, you can almost land an airplane on it, so it's quite large. That was some of the areas where I thought you can maintain your trails, your areas to learn to bike, and then there might even be spots within that where you could, de-pave some, and if so be, and make that, lessen the impact of that impervious, but still allow, plowing through, or biking, or walking, so that loop road is quite extensive, and so I think that's like a great, completely sort of separated zone for people use for pedestrians.
And we don't have any vision for changing that.
Yeah.
The perimeter roads are priceless.
Yeah.
The ability to walk and be in different environments, and also to, you never encounter vehicles.
Yes.
We think that's great.
Except for sometimes Don's.
Well, yeah.
I mean, the only thing I suggest along that perimeter road was maybe creating a rhythm of these hedgerows that provided a little bit of scale, some windbreak, while you're maintaining those views, so the views become even, I think, more special, and then, it starts just to add in that sort of traditional sort of farm typology into the field, on the edge of the field that you might see in a lot of sort of agricultural fields.
And
Yeah, please, jump in,
I'm impressed by the plan. I believe with both the ramp and the use change, you're gonna see more traffic, but less parking spaces are shown. Is there a dichotomy that I'm missing here?
Oh, yeah, this is just the concept. So I should say that, following this sort of initial planning process, I developed some quick sketches, that, and I think, here they are. Working over more specifically over the base plan for the boat launch, and looking at how, so right now there's about 30 spaces plus or minus out there, and just you can quickly see how you can easily get to 50 or more in that same area. So that's we think, and then there's also opportunities to, of course, have parking in other parts of the site. So that's, parking is a great question, because how we always try to calibrate parking is like, how much parking do you want to provide? Not can we provide all the parking in the world. How much do you need? Do you need 40 spaces, 30 spaces, 50 spaces, 70 spaces? Once you determine what you need, then you build that parking. Don't just build it if you don't need it, because we see so much excess parking in every community we work. And a lot of the land trusts we work with, and it's the Nature Conservancy or whoever, one way to sort of control the impact on a site is you don't have, the sky's the limit on the parking. You use parking as a way to actually sort of monitor or create a rhythm of the level of use you want for the site. Yeah.
What's the route that you would follow for a car and boat coming in to use the launch? How would we get there?
You come down the existing road, and then just come down the existing road, and then go right to the launch.
Through that parking lot?
Straight shot right through, yeah. Straight shot.
I'm gonna keep us on
Yeah.
track here.
Yeah, sure.
We've done an hour. Are you all set with yours, or do you have more slides? to
Yeah,
go?
I mean, I just did another layout variation, showing a angled parking, a loop road. The advantage of this, there's advantages and disadvantages, but you can get about the same amount of parking. You can create a loop system within the parking. You can break up the parking with like a bigger island. Yeah, it creates a little more impervious than the other version. But this is just to show that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 different ways to sort of address parking in this area, and can be figured out through a more involved design process.
Mitchell, can you go back to a large scale just for a second of the entire field? One of the things we talked about is that a lot of people want to go to the waterfront and park. But a lot of people like to park up top. They like to park, a lot of people like to park at the, what we call the donut now, that's the boat launch, which could be boat launch trailer parking. But we see that it's important to keep an option to have some slightly expanded parking up top.
Yep.
So, and we're gonna call these satellite lots, because we can see, this is kind of like the main lot, this is like the big kahuna. And then you have satellite lots, that you might want one here. We've talked about on the Mitchell Field Committee when I was still on it, we talked about parking below the community garden, because they don't plan to use all of that land. And maybe there's 1 or 2 other spots to have satellite lots which encompass 6 cars or 10 cars, and no more than that. So that people can disperse themselves at will and say, I'm gonna park here at the community garden and get on that nice trail that goes down in the woods, and I don't have to deal with waterfront, and I don't have to walk down from the top. So satellite lots are something you can identify some basic areas, and they wouldn't be anywhere on the perimeter roads, for instance. They would just be along the main drag. Maybe another one at the corner where the generator road comes in. So that's a key piece of the.
Oh, yeah, thank you for bringing that
If it's
up.
full down
Yeah.
here for whatever reason,
Yeah.
you'll find another place to park. And if there's no parking, there's no parking. If you ever try to go to Morse Mountain and go down to the beach in Pittsburgh, when that lot's full, you gotta leave, because it's a pretty good sized lot, but.
I mean, personally, I like Morris Mountain with the 6-person lot,
Yeah.
6-car lot.
Like, what's the red rectangle?
Well, in the very beginning, I'm glad you asked, this is not supposed to be here now, but in the very beginning, we talked about, would there be a community building, where would it go? And we said, well, let's just pencil in a community building and be at the top. But the thing about the community building question is, there doesn't seem to be a strong need for a community building, in our view. So we would remove that when we forgot to.
Yeah.
And because that is that beautiful piece of land that on the right with the beautiful oak trees and whatever that grow up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cycle through the Mitchell Field Committee members.
Yeah.
Because we are in a meeting.
Thank you, Tom.
Catherine?
It's a little overwhelming.
Okay. Phil? You all set? Good, I'm good. Scott? Rose? Lee? Dave?
Joe, one of the things that came up in the discussion over the last year or so was where and how you would locate toilet facilities, particularly at the waterfront. Have you given any thought to that?
Well, yes, a little thought. I mean, and let's see if it even shows up here. I think.
Let's show on there somewhere.
Yeah, I think part of the idea with that was that, if there was a bathroom and some sort of required storage, to really sort of push it off to the side out of the view of that, sort of as an interface area between maybe, coming down the road, but so adjacent to those uses or in between those uses, but nowhere in the view shed of the beach and the waterfront. There's maybe something tucked off to the side.
And another one at the top.
A different
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you need to, potentially. They don't have to be, that's not a big facility, doesn't have to have a big footprint or have a big impact. But, I think if you're gonna bring more people down there, it's an amenity that's, a reasonable amenity for people to expect. Of course, if you have kids and things, right?
I did have one question. What is that orange rectangle at the end of the breakwater?
I'm not, is that proposed as part of the GEI plan? I can't remember. There's something out there, like a gazebo or something.
It's just a patio where the bollards are gonna be located.
Yeah, I think we just maybe added a fancy color to it. I think it's what,
Yeah.
I think it's proposed as part of that GEI plan.
Well, the bollards are already out there, but they need to move them to the side in order to do a pier extension
Yeah.
at the end.
And I think, we were thinking.
That's not the stub pier, is it?
No, the stub pier wouldn't be that big.
Yeah, I think when we gave it the grandiose title of Pier Outlaw. Nice, a lot of people are going to
Just
the
one
end.
last
One
point.
more and then
Oh, yeah,
share.
please, yeah.
Okay.
This is concept only, I want to reinforce that, and we deliberately left a lot of the details vague, because we didn't want to get into a discussion of the detail of the parking. That alone could take a couple of weeks. And as you can see, just a broad overview, as it did for us as we were helping to develop this, provokes a lot of thinking and a lot of questions, the kind that have never come up before, because you've never looked at this field holistically, I guess to use Moses' word. So that's what it was designed to do. It's not designed to answer questions in detail. It's designed to begin the process of thinking about the field as an aggregate entity, as a more recreationally oriented space, knowing that from this point forward, there's going to be a tremendous amount of interaction, both with the committee, both with the community. So there's a long process in front of us where all of those details will be hammered out. So I just wanted to clarify that. So if people are left feeling, geez, it didn't have this or didn't have that, that was quite deliberate.
Thank you.
Sharon?
My question, and maybe I appreciate the broader perspective you gave, Dave. Does your current, broad brush sketch allow for any meaningful access or interaction with the water for folks who can't park up at the top and walk all the way down? Just looking at the diversity of mobility levels in our community.
I think that's absolutely a great question, and I agree. I think we have the oldest population of the country is in Maine, and so I think making a site accessible for all users is really important. So right now there isn't a way to get down to the waterfront for ADA users. I mean, I think people they can get this overlook probably out there and be dropped off, but I do think, that'll be a management decision, but I think things like, providing an ADA wheelchair system or a path. You'll have to figure out how you want to handle ADA, either through like an ADA type wheelchair or actually create an ADA path.
Or even something, I think that would be wonderful, but I think one of the things that perhaps we've taken for granted right now is just the ability to go in and park next to the oyster farm and look at the water while you eat your ice cream.
Oh, that stays though, that doesn't go away, right?
But it sounds like there's a lot more, I'm in favor of green space, but just want to make sure that we don't, take away all of the kind of paved casual parking area, which for some people is their main way to access that view.
No, and I agree. There's a huge user group that just come down there, even in the middle of the winter, drink a cup of coffee, have their lunch, whatever, listen to the radio, make some phone calls, whatever they need to do, right?
And watch the sunset.
Yeah. And I mean, we found that, like, for example, at Bug Light Park, that's like there's a lot of people who use it, but there's a lot of people who just go there and park and look.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that there's still, spaces facing towards the water.
Okay.
You can park, look at the water,
That's
and,
great.
and I bet you those spaces are gonna fill up more than the other spaces in terms of
Right.
wanting to look at the water.
We have a couple of minutes for public questions, and then I need to cut it because we still have committee business to do. Howard?
A couple of things. One is to talk about the perimeter road as a way to bicycle without traffic. Half of the perimeter road is not paved on the south.
It's cold pack.
Right. And on a road bike, that's pretty much useless. And right now, what I do is I ride laps coming down the entrance road,
Yep.
past the oyster building there, and then back up the rest of that. And so I just want to point out that that is a very important part of being able to bicycle there on pavement. So whatever happens with that. In fact, one of my first concerns when I heard there's a boat ramp going in was that I would come around that curve there and find a boat trailer across the road as I'm coming down the hill at 25 miles an hour, which would be highly unpleasant. If it's going to come around
the speed limit.
Well, there's no ordinance, so.
But the, you know, so if the new path is going to be to come around and come away from the water, from the oyster farm building there, and come along there, it just needs to be bike friendly to make that maneuver, to make that loop there and stay on the pavement. And the very first slide that was up there when we came in had several dock facilities out along the pier, and what looked like to me streetlights.
Oh, you probably know.
That was before anything came down. That's what the field looked like before they took all that out. He's talking about your very first picture.
Oh, yeah, that's
Oh,
existing,
okay.
that's existing
Yeah,
condition.
None of that's there.
That's what the
Okay.
field
That's
looked
existing
like
condition.
before we ever took the pier out.
Okay.
We tend not to light public parks because they're not usually open at night.
Yeah, right. And I know what your concern is.
Yeah.
I mean, I like a dark sky advocate and I like a bike advocate, those are my
There's your primary.
Those are my people,
advocate.
those are my people.
I have both of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big bicyclist and I love dark skies, so.
I hold astronomy events down there.
Oh, yeah.
At the waterfront.
Well, hopefully it's gonna get better, I mean, it'll be hopefully less light.
There's no light down there.
Oh, good, then good.
That's, I'm pointing this out, that there is no.
Oh, good, then you're, at least in my vision, which is early concept, is that doesn't change, yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else?
We can ask a guilty question.
Oh, yeah.
I'm on the housing committee. We don't show housing. Not part of the plan.
Well, I bet you the students are gonna come up with all sorts of cool housing ideas, that's my
Just
guess.
asking.
I think you'll see,
Warranted.
I think the UVA students are gonna come up with, that's my feeling, that they're gonna come, so you're gonna see some great housing plans forthcoming, I bet you.
Katie?
But it's not part of this plan.
Oh, no, I was taking more of like an ecological strategy, user strategy approach, and didn't really get into other site uses.
Much appreciated.
Yeah.
I appreciate that I represent an anomaly of young children in this community. We bring over 200 children to this park twice a year for cross-country events. I'm on the bandstand committee. Those are tons of people every Thursday for the summer. So most of the time, we are not seeing that influx, but just to put that on the radar. And I saw a nature play thing, so I look forward to being part of future conversations as we're talking about kids recreating.
Right, well, we
in this
tried to
space.
incorporate some stuff we thought would appeal to all age ranges, seniors as well as kids. Because right now it doesn't, I mean, the beach is an awesome kid spot, but we thought a nature playground would fit in ideally, not in an unobtrusive spot.
Awesome.
And then also we're trying to make that whole waterfront area more kid-friendly, like with creating a zone that's just for pedestrians. You don't have to worry about vehicles sort of interrupting that zone.
Okay. One more last
Oh,
question.
yeah, please, yeah.
So what is the process for this whole thing moving forward? I mean, are you getting are there other proposals and this is one
No.
proposal, or like what happens?
The master plan update, we have a subcommittee of people that are working on that. So they're starting to formulate that. I made a presentation to the select board a couple weeks ago asking for more time. Originally, people wanted to see it by town meeting. Well, none of the projects that are ongoing right now were going to be done by town meeting. So we had no sense of what the impact of the boat launch would be and no admin building. So we asked for more time. And so we're probably looking at it being towards the end of the year that it would be ready for that. But in the meantime, once the subcommittee gets done, then we're going to go out to the public, similar to what the comp plan did. There will be presentations in all parts of the town, Cundy's Harbor, Orrs Bailey Island, Kellogg Church, get feedback from the community, go back, work it again and see what we come up with and come back to the town. Ultimately, the town will have to vote on the master plan update. And so this concept, they wanted to present it so that as we go through this process, we can look at all sorts of input.
And just to reiterate, you're going to get a bunch of great stuff coming through from the UVA students, so you'll have a lot of material to sort through in terms of inspiration or potential ideas for the site.
And I've talked to Spike too about possibly doing this. They've recorded it, but it will be more opportunity possibly to do it on TV and get more word out to the public.
I think that just to
Go
in
ahead.
terms of process, you know, we agreed that the first step for us is to come to the Mitchell Field Committee, because they are the gatekeeper for Mitchell Field. And so that's where we're working. That's why we're introducing it here, and then we can help them flesh things out as they wish, and then the process will grow from there at some point. It has to be a public process ultimately, but I think the Mitchell Field Committee is the one that gets to point the arrows where they need to go.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, thank you, folks.
Thank
We
you.
have
One
one more.
more thing, I'm making a list and taking names, I didn't get your name or your name. Could you stop by and let me know who you are so I can get the official record complete? Thank you.
Thanks, folks. Appreciate your time.